Hey friends, as you can tell by my backdrop, we made it. We got all the way back to Michigan. This time with a stop in Grand Rapids and an overnight at one of my cousin's once removed's house, or second cousin's house. It's always a little tough for me to keep this stuff straight. And we're back, and it was a wonderful travel experience with Annalise. Something that came up as I had a chance on the plane on the first flight. Annalise fell asleep, thank God. And I had a chance to just listen to my Sadhguru book for a little while. And I found myself just mesmerized by him again, as usual. And it's also it's interestingly dovetailing with my experience of coming back up to this part of the country, where last time when we arrived, I believe I did a post on elemental nourishment, this sense that the land, the sand, the water, the sun, the trees, everything here has this organic energy that just soothes me. It's just, and I think it's partly that I grew up coming here, and places that are familiar to us have a soothing effect on our system, because our system just feels like home. But it also works on other people. I've seen a lot of people come up here for the very first time and go, oh, wow. Sleep 12 hours the first night, or just lay around for a day and just feel energized by the sand and by the light and the trees. Just a miraculous part of the country. So one of the things that Sadhguru talked about in his book, this is the book Inner Engineering that I'm now listening to, he talked about how it's so easy for us to live in our minds and ignore our bodies. And, on one level it's like, well, duh, yeah, we know we're doing that. Or we're not. I think a lot of us are making pretty powerful strides towards cultivating that awareness. But certainly culturally, there's a tendency to live in the mind. And it's almost like that's just what we think is reality. We just think that what the mind is doing and what the mind feels is important, that's reality. And so we miss a million, zillion, billion impulses that are coming to us through our body, that our body is registering. Our body feels. It's not, when I sit here and have a psychological experience of, wow, it's so peaceful, or it's so gorgeous, it's so nurturing. I'm describing something and I'm using my mind to describe it, but that experience is not being transmitted to my mind. That experience is being transmitted to every cell in my body. And learning / remembering that we are such a sensitive antenna. I think I talked about this in my post yesterday, because I really experience myself in relationship to Annalise, and this upcoming week is going to be a real intense dose of that, because Mama's not here. This is Papa and Annalise time. So, a young person, they're just such a moldable piece of clay. She's picking up so much, and she doesn't, and it almost feels like one of the greatest things I can do as in my role is to just help her not shut down on stuff. Help her feel that level of perception is okay. And sometimes that means mitigating certain influences, or but more often than not, it's in the moment that she receives it, the moment that she takes in an impulse, and it kind of activates her system, helping her in that moment to remain conscious to it, as opposed to, and this is where, again, I come back to the Brene Brown stuff I guess we had finished watching it right before the last time I came up here. She was talking about how to communicate with your kids, and how to help our kids not, the lesson, the thing we always want to do as parents is make our kids feel better, right? We see our child hurting or having a tough experience, we want to make it better. But that's not always what we need to do. Sometimes we need to just help them have the experience and be okay with having the experience, whether it's an experience of pain or an experience of a little bit of, startled, not so sureness. And so I realize I'm crisscrossing a lot of different little territories here, but at the core of what I'm detecting, and what was kind of really coming through as I listened to Sadhguru, because Sadhguru was talking about yoga as the practice of knowing that we are something beyond this body, beyond this mind, and living that experience. And it takes a real willingness to not know, in the sense of the mind, in order to tolerate bodily experience. Because I know for myself, and I'm sure that many people can relate to this, I'm very eager to make meaning. In other words, my mind is it's on the game, it's in the game, it's on the ball, trying to take my experiences and make meaning out of them. And while I love my mind for its capacity to do this, sitting with the experience of I don't know is sometimes not so easy. And that's a really important skill. Because that desire to know and that desire to make meaning puts the emphasis of life onto the interpretation of our experiences. What does our mind do with our experiences? But as we know, our system of organization and our mental patterns are proclivities and their tendencies that shape what we take in. If we have a kind of default mode, a default method of interpreting our experiences, chances are we're going to filter a lot of those experiences out because we've already kind of decided what the interpretation is. So again, this is where I come back to watching a child, being with a child, being a child. And there's some emotion there for me. My willingness to be a child. You know, I think I was like Annalise in some ways. I was very anxious to be an adult. The last thing she was saying before she went down for her nap was, I'm an adult. You don't need to put me to sleep. I'm an adult. And I had a lot of that too. But there's something really beautiful in a willingness to simply be perceptive in the way that a child is perceptive, and to be okay in that context of receiving input, receiving impressions and perceptions that we can't immediately make sense of. And if we can allow that to happen, if we can allow our instrument, our body, this unbelievable cosmic antenna, I literally feel like the entire universe's worth of information is flowing through this moment in my and this moment and through me. And this is why Sadhguru says, you know, he didn't even read the Yoga Sutras until he already had an enlightenment experience, and until he had already, I think he was a teacher. I think he was already, you know, a well-established guru before he ever read any of the yoga texts, because he was like, I don't need them. I'm listening. I'm hearing this. I know what's, like, I can perceive. We can all receive this information. The texts are wonderful, poetic expressions of that wisdom and those perceptions, and they can be guides. They can guide us in a way, but they are not the thing, and they're not going to give us the thing, and we don't need them to have the thing, because we have this incredible access to all of that information and all of that energy right here in our bodies. So, as I enter this week, I think that's where I'm going to be putting my focus. I think that's where my focus goes. see how I relate to myself, see how I relate to my daughter. I watched Annalise yesterday in a yoga studio. We went into the yoga room at Midway Airport, and I watched her do yoga. I've never seen her do yoga. I don't even know. I never knew she knew how to do anything about yoga, but she's sitting there and just, it was like she was channeling. She was teaching me yoga poses. And I've done yoga for 30 years. It was amazing. It was like her body was just, and I kept wanting to say something, and I had this recollection of Sadhguru saying he never allowed anyone to teach his daughter anything when she was young. Speaking of which, here she is. I think that's my cue. It's been a lovely post. More of this body, wisdom, perception, and not knowing. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.